This is Rat Pack Radio, the internet radio station that brings you everything from the top hits in music.
Hey guys, this is Bruno Mars.
To Sports Talk Radio.
With the first pick in the 2016 NFL Draft, the Los Angeles Rams select Jared Goff, quarterback, California.
We are here for you, WRPR Rat Pack Radio. Come join the pack.
You're listening to WRPR Rat Pack Radio. Come join the pack. You're listening to Rat Pack Sports Show on WRPR Rat Pack Radio.
Has a reputation to be the best at what he does.
You see, a man has to realize his limitations. You don't know me, and you don't know what I'm capable of.
That was a heck of an effort.
This house is a prison in the galaxy of this sucks.
You free enough.
This battle is over when I say it is over. I will massacre you.
Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40!
Are you not entertained?
I'd say in a given week, I probably only do about 15 minutes of real, actual work.
That's how I roll. Offensive fire!
Hello? You play to win the game.
There's the drive! Way back! It might be! It could be!
This is my favorite part coming up right now.
All right. Rat Pack Sports Show. We are back. We are live Wednesday night, Rat Pack Radio, WRPR. We are live, Rat Pack Radio, WRPR app, and also the ratpacksports.com website. We're in the building another week, bring you the best there is in sports talk and entertainment for your ears and listening pleasure. Welcome in on another Wednesday night, folks. We are here, and sorry about the late start. Some odd reason, sometimes before we go on the air, technology will decide that certain things don't want to work, and you got to fix those and get them all figured out before you get on, because you need audio in order to get online and speak to the people. So I didn't have any audio coming into my headphones, so I had to get that all squared away. But we good. We here now, and we going to bring you the Rat Pack Sports Show the only way we know how. Every week we do it, and we got a lot to talk about tonight. Get into some baseball, NBA playoffs. Nicholas Lane should be on with us here in a little bit. William Graves should be on with us as well. Talk some sports. We're going to get into some NFL draft talk. And we'll get into that hopefully we get Boss Hog Sean Naylor in to get some talk in. So need to get these messages. We're gonna talk a little bit of wrestling. It is Wednesday night, so we do have AEW. I don't currently have AEW on at the very moment, but you got AEW, WWE, and well, I guess William Graves won't be on with us tonight. Okay, all right. So no William Graves tonight. I didn't even see this. Oh, he had to go early from work. I just saw it. All right, so it's me and Nicholas Lane until he comes on. So we're going to just start it out. And we got quite a bit to talk about. We're going to go right into the NFL. And yeah, so we're going to get into some NFL because there was some breaking stories this week. And you guys know me. You followed me a while. And you know my opinion on the Bucs, good or bad. You know my opinion. And you also know where I stand when it comes to certain players on this roster. So we're gonna keep on going because I think this is hilarious. But early on in this off season, we had, free agency, and we had a lot of moves to make. We had a lot of money we had to come out the books. We had some key pieces that we needed to sign, and we also, let go some guys that any other time we would have kept them, but due to our cap situation, we weren't able to keep them. So, because we weren't able to keep them, it gave us a little bit of wiggle room. We saved up some money by reworking some contracts and doing some doing some things. So we get Levante David. He's the heart and soul of this defense. We got him re-signed. To me, that was priority number one. I was very vocal about us re-signing Levante David. He's been the best player on his defense probably since the day he got here. He's going into, I think, his 11th season now. He's still the best player on our defense. So with that being said, you do what you got to do to re-sign the best player on your defense who's still playing at the top of his game. I mean, can you name me 5 linebackers in all of football that is performing better than him? It'll be hard to do if you just strictly, break down the film and break down the numbers and all of that stuff. So we have this linebacker by the name of Devin White. We drafted him out of LSU. He's going into his 5th season, I think it is. Yeah, he's going into his 5th season, 4th or 5th season. And there was rumors. Now, I'm not even gonna say I got a plug. Me and this guy, we're very good friends. So, my guy Blake Anthony, came out earlier in this offseason. And there's a couple other guys too over at Bucs Life. And but Blake Anthony put it out there on Facebook in the social media world that there was a certain player this offseason that was wanting a $100 million contract. That player name is Devin White. And for those who, listen to this show and been listening to this show for quite some time, y'all know how I feel about Devin White. I don't think he's that good. And a lot of people are going to say, how can you say he's not that good? I'll tell you how. Because when you look at the tape, he makes some splash plays. But if you're a Bucs fan, like I am, and you don't watch every game for the last 4 years, you understand in between those splash plays, you got a lot of mediocre play. You have bad tackling, lack of not being able to get off the blocks in the run game, and you have the lack of being able to cover in the pass. For all that speed everybody praised him for, he cannot cover the field in the passing game. Some of our problems on the defensive side of the ball is directly related to him not staying in his gap or over pursuing a play or not being able to cover the middle of the field against the pass. To put this in perspective, Devin White has been a middle linebacker his whole career. NFL, college he played middle linebacker. But middle linebacker position is pretty straightforward. No matter what defense you playing, it's still middle linebacker. Whether you 3-4, 2 middle linebackers, or 4-3, 1 middle linebacker, it's still the same concept for the middle linebacker. So, yeah, there are adjustments as far as scheme and stuff like that. But the overall responsibility of the middle linebacker position doesn't change. Opposed to you see a guy like Levante David, who has played weak side linebacker his whole life. All of college, he came into the league weak side linebacker since the day he came into the league. Todd Bowles comes in with the 3-4. It moves Levante David to inside. Explain to me why Levante David being moved inside has been more productive, consistent than a guy who's supposed to be a middle linebacker. I'll tell you why. It's very simple. Levante David is a better football player. You know, between the splash plays that we get from Levante David, we get consistent linebacker play in, play out. You rarely see a play happen and you say, oh, Levante David, that's on him. Yeah, it happens sometimes, but you don't see Levante David being carried 10, 15 yards downfield by an offensive lineman. You don't see Levante David on the field while the rest of his defense is hustling, trying to make a tackle. You won't see Levante David walking on the field while the rest of his teammates trying to chase down a tackle because you can't get off the block. This is very consistent, folks. All you got to do is go watch the film or pay a little bit more attention while you're watching the game instead of watching the end results. Watch what happened in between. Why is the only time we hear White is when Todd Bowles sending them on the blitz. We supposed to have edge rushers off the edge for that. Yeah, that's something he does well, but for his position, that's something I don't care about. Getting to the quarterback. Because there's a lot more involved in playing the middle linebacker position that he's not doing. And I've been calling this out for quite some time. Well, that same guy asked the Bucs for $100 million earlier this offseason. And while the Bucs dealing with their own cap problems, trying to figure out, how they going to get enough money to sign their draft picks and bring in, key free agents. This man is asking for $100 million, and because the Bucs are not negotiating the contract, or he don't feel like the negotiations are going anywhere or whatnot, he asks for a trade. Well, ladies and gentlemen, personally, I don't care if White gets traded. I say for $100 million, let him go. I mean, I'm big on the pro football focus when it comes down to breaking down players and ratings and all of that stuff. I'm big on that. And when you're bottom of the league, literally, out of like 80-something linebackers, you're ranked in the 70s at your position, bruh. I don't care about your, sacks. And I know, ESPN is going to show some graphic of, White being one of the only few linebackers in the league to do this and do that since he came into the league. Sacks, total tackles. Yeah, that's great. But, again, I'm going to go back to the argument of what everybody said about Jerry McCoy when Jerry McCoy was here, and a lot of people shamed on Jerry McCoy because he wasn't getting 10, 12 sacks a year, and he wasn't doing what Warren Sapp did, even though he was still literally one of the top 5 best defensive linemen at his position for a very long time. If you ain't making them plays when it means something, it don't matter. Like if I get a tackle in the run game 15 yards downfield, but I had a chance to tackle him 5 yards deep, and I run him down 15 yards downfield. It's just a tackle. There's no impact to it. You didn't stop him in the backfield. You didn't stop him for no gain. The guy, this is what I've seen from White all last season. Yeah, here we go. You ready? Let's go. The quarterback snapped the ball. He handed the ball off. They run right up the middle. Instead of White sticking his helmet in and blowing the hole up, like this is what they teach you as, linebackers when you got gap responsibility. You may not be able to make the tackle all the time. We're not. Your job is to plug the hole. So if you can't make the tackle, at least blow the hole up, knock the lead blocker on his behind, stop him in his tracks. Therefore, the running back has to stop his feet because you just plugged the hole. Well, I don't see that. I've never seen that from White. And what I do see is White, to avoid being blocked, he will literally jump out of his gap responsibility to avoid the lead, whether it's the lineman pulling or they got a fullback blocker or whatever. He will jump out of the gap responsibility to try to make a tackle and never make the tackle. So you just leave a wide open gap for running backs to just run right up the middle. I mean, if you guys don't believe me, just go and look at the tape. He's done this forever. He's one of the worst in the league when it comes to missed tackles for a defensive player. He can't cover. Somebody on Facebook was debating with me, and I haven't heard their response yet, but they was asking me why I'm acting like it's my money and why shouldn't he get paid that type of money? But yet, he's an above. This is their exact words. He's an above average linebacker. Well, you don't pay above average linebackers top billing money. So I just killed your argument, number one, because you literally just said in your own words he's an above average linebacker. So why would you want to pay an above average linebacker top money and put yourself in a very bad cap situation that you're still trying to get yourself out of right now? So if you want to be traded, hey, my phone lines are open. I'm taking all offers. Well, I'm not taking. I'm listening to all offers. And I know, the Bucs saying they don't want to, they're not entertaining his request. But if you got somebody in your locker room unhappy that doesn't want to be there or want to be traded, and you bring him back into the locker room, that could be a problem. Same situation that's going on in Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers came out and said, my intentions is to play for the Jets. So now the Packers and the Jets are at a standstill because compensation. They don't feel like they're getting enough for Rodgers. So now that you're at a standstill. And because you at that standstill, now you got to sit around and chill and wait for, them to figure it out. So, just a couple crazy things. We'll jump back into it. But we got my man on the line with us. So we're going to switch gears a little bit. Rat Pack Sports Show, NBA insider himself, Mr. Nicholas Lane, a.k.a. Nicky Buckets. What's going on, brother?
What's going on? We got rained out for softball, and we get to talk some NBA tonight. It's exciting.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you got the play-in games happening. And, with the play-in games happening, we get to see who's going to earn the spots to advance to the real first round of the playoffs. So I'm going to treat it like I treat the play-in games for college basketball. It's not a legitimate round because it's only 2 games.
But it does, talk to that about Dallas. They quit. They didn't want to be in the play-in tournament even because if they get a pick in the top 10, they get to keep their pick. And if they don't, if they're outside of the top 10, the Knicks get their pick from the Porzingis trade. So what I would say is the play-in tournament is starting to matter. It's gaining some steam. I believe it's in their 4th season doing it, or 3rd. I think it's their 4th. And for now, I think it's been a good thing for the league. It does make the regular season a little bit more interesting at the end, especially for the hardcore fans. Last night's Lakers-Timberwolves game was a really good game to watch. I mean, it was kind of sloppy play in the fourth quarter especially, but, right now, the Bulls in this Toronto game, the Bulls were getting their butts whooped most of the game, and all of a sudden, they are coming back, and it's a tie game right now with 6 minutes left to play, it's an and one from Scotty Barnes, but it does feel like a playoff game. Their season are on the line. This Bulls team, if they lose this experiment with DeRozan, Levine, Vucevic with no Lonzo Ball, it could look like that it's going to fail, and then all of a sudden the Bulls got to figure out what to do. If Toronto loses, then they'll probably lose their coach in the off season, and they got to figure out what to do with OG Anunoby, and they just trade for Jakob Poeltl. I think these things do matter, and when it comes to what the outlook for the teams going forward, the play-in tournament, I think it does matter.
Yeah, it does matter. It does matter to me. It's just. I guess it's a good thing for the league per se to keep the interest up, but it's professional sports, not college. So you either earn your way in the regular season and make the top 8, or you go home. So, the playing game to me, it's just an extension of the regular season.
It also does prevent teams from tanking so early, and that is also something that the league has tried to have to figure out. Like for instance, 2 games left in the season, Dallas still has a chance to make the play-in. They played Luka one quarter, and then they just gave up. That looks bad if you have a superstar like Luka and you still have a Kyrie, and you're giving up. And if you only give it to the top 8, we talk about how the last couple of weeks of the season are kind of lackluster for a lot of these teams, obviously the losing teams. You would get over a month plus of that kind of ball compared to if teams are still going for the play-in. I mean, Portland bagged it about 3 weeks left in the season when they bagged their season. But if they were on that course with if you could only make the top 8, then they would have bagged it. Again, late February, they probably would have bagged it. To me, yeah, it looks like an extension of college, but it does solve a few things where some teams can still go for the play-in, and maybe that is their point of success, where they're on track to on their timeline, of becoming a great team eventually, and that is the Oklahoma City Thunder, who are the 10 seed. They're playing in the next game against New Orleans with no Zion Williamson, and he's not going to play in the second playing game if they win tonight. I think for a young team like Oklahoma City, this is a really big deal for them too, because all these guys that, except for maybe Lou Dort, maybe one other guy, nobody else on that roster really has a lot of playoff experience, or hardly any. So to me, you still get a playoff type atmosphere or playoff type games when your young players really need that.
Yeah, and you talk about teams tanking, and the Dallas Mavericks. I've thought something was weird about that. I think it was either the second to the last game or third, whatever, to the last game, and nobody was playing. Like, Kyrie was out, Luka was out, a few other guys was out, and I'm like, you got a chance to, make the play in and have, and here it is, you late in the season where you need W's, and guys are not playing. And then there's this chatter of Luka saying that he's not happy about being, paired up with, Kyrie.
Boy, we couldn't see that coming from a mile away, right?
We talked about this, and for as great as Luka is as a basketball player, he's a ball-dominant player. So, the ball has to be in his hands or else. And Kyrie Irving, one of the top isolation players in the league, that's the way he plays. So I know Luka know basketball enough to understand how to play without the ball in his hands. I mean, he's come from Europe. He understands basketball to that extent, but it's not working in Dallas. And then I hear Kyrie Irving make a statement, and I had to scratch my head on this because part of his statement sounded like this. I didn't know that I was going to be traded, but it just kind of happened. But you asked for the trade. So what is you saying?
To me, you have to look at Luka as a player. You have to look at what is he good at. Ball dominant, gets to the rim a ton, a lot of free throw attempts. Like, he's a good enough 3-point shooter. Like, he's not known as that's his game necessarily. And you got to have another bona fide scorer plus another ball handler. And there's a guy on the Chicago Bulls that hasn't really been that happy on the Chicago Bulls the last year and a half. His name is Zach LaVine. If you don't re-sign Kyrie Irving, I've seen some talk that they don't want to re-sign Christian Wood. Shocker. And they should throw money at Zach LaVine. You put LaVine, who's an excellent shooter, and you put Luka, who is he is a great player. You put them together and you figure out the rest of the roster. I think that's a pretty good start for them. You don't go after a Damian Lillard because I just don't think the Blazers have a lot of competency in their front office to actually put a real contender around him. They're the type of team that would pay Jeremy Grant, that would not trade Yusuf Nurkic, and then they would tell Damian Lillard, "This is the best we got." And if I were Lillard, I'd run for the hills. Even though he signed all that money with them, I mean, he could obviously ask for a trade, and Portland will eventually have to cave into him and trade him if that were to be the case. Because I just think the Blazers front office lacks a lot of competency. Now, drafting-wise with Shaedon Sharpe, I mean, he was one of the biggest surprises when he was drafted, and how this season turned out for Shaedon Sharpe. It was one of the biggest surprises. 100% it was. But I just don't see how the Blazers can really competently put a real roster around him. But I don't see them wanting to call up Dallas to send him to Dallas to pair him with Luka. I don't see how Lillard is that option to put there. I want to see a shooting guard like a Beal or like a LaVine type of player who's a shot chucker but is also pretty accurate. They both can handle the ball if needed too, because we saw how good Dallas was last year with a guy named Jalen Brunson, and they didn't get anything back in free agency for Jalen Brunson. So that was a pretty big whiff on the Dallas Mavericks' part in that side of things. They're running out of options, I think, when it comes to what they gave up to get Porzingis, which they tanked at the last two games essentially to try to salvage one of those picks that they don't have to give up to the Knicks. Tim Hardaway doesn't look himself. They have one of the worst players in the league. His name is Davis Bertans, which, as you know, is one of my lurking Anthony Bennett All-Star alumni. And this roster is just not very good, and Dallas has a lot to figure out right now.
Yeah, they do. They got to figure out, going into next year, do they want to compete and try to make a run, or do they want to just stay status quo?
I think if they stay status quo, like we see this with Beal now. So, not that Bradley Beal's a superstar that Luka is, because he's not. But, the last offseason, he was clamoring to get his Giants contract, his Supermax type deal, and he got it. So he said all the right stuff, and now he's saying that he's frustrated or he doesn't like the situation because they're not winning. They're not putting out a winning product. So to me, Luke is going to be in that same kind of conversation very soon. All the fear is he's going to leave the summer, 2024, kind of thing. And to me, I see it as he's going to say the right things now, like saying that he's happy. But if this happens again this next year and nothing changes, he's going to start squawking.
Yeah.
And when you got your superstar squawking, you're pretty much up against it. It's we've seen it with Anthony Davis. We've seen it with Paul George in Indiana. Oh, God, we've seen it with Kawhi Leonard in San Antonio not wanting to be there anymore. And then, of course, he goes from the Raptors to the Clippers. We have seen it just so many times in this league. And to me, once a superstar starts talking, you're finished. So the Mavericks are going to have a lot to do and a lot to sit, and they have a lot on their plate that they're going to have to figure out this offseason. They don't have a lot of assets, I think, to get a big name player, and I think they're in trouble here. I think they are.
I agree with you, man. I just think, when this trade was made for Kyrie and Luka, we talked about it, and we knew that a lot of people were saying that, oh, this is a good pairing, but it really isn't, because they're literally the same, type of player. So, you got a bigger version, stronger version in Luka, but the way they play is basically the same. So it just didn't mesh well. It just didn't mesh well, for them.
And it's another superstar that doesn't do well with Kyrie Irving. It just hasn't worked out for him. Like Brown and Tatum didn't really like him when he was in Boston. Him and KD had their odds, and then him and of course James Harden didn't like each other at all either. The only superstar that has worked well with him is LeBron James. That's it. There hasn't really been a good track record for Kyrie, and this is another example of that. So, I mean, teams have got to be pretty careful, obviously, how much money they want to pay him, one, and who they're going to pair him with. I think they got to be really careful of that.
Yeah, that'll be the trick. Like, who are you going to pair him with?
The Lakers, if they don't pay Austin Reeves, if they don't pay D'Angelo Russell, they'll have more than enough room to put Kyrie there. But at the end of the day, Austin Reeves, I don't think this is a joke. I actually really believe that Austin Reeves can get an $80 million contract in the league this summer. And I don't think the Lakers can match it. I feel that somebody will pay him. He's a good shooter. He can handle the ball well. He has good hustle. He's a team player. He's out there on the floor in crunch time with the Lakers. He's not just another guy out on the floor. I think this is not an Alex Caruso. I think he's better than an Alex Caruso, who obviously went to Chicago. To me, I think this Austin Reeves thing is a real thing, and I think a team will pay him very well, and I think he deserves that.
Yeah, somebody will. Somebody will pay him if they see the value, in him and what he can bring to the table. There's no doubt that he will get, signed somewhere and make a pretty big, contract, because he's been durable, and
I think one could argue, since LeBron was out for a while this last month and a half after the All-Star break, that Austin Reeves is a very big reason why the Lakers are actually in the first round of the playoffs. It has nothing to do with last night. That's when, those type of games are your horses win you those games. Your Anthony Davises and your LeBrons. But those regular season games where they went like 19-10, they did well enough to get obviously into a first round matchup with the Grizzlies. But I think Austin Reeves is a much bigger reason why the Lakers are actually in the first round compared to LeBron or even as equal as a Davis. I think Davis has obviously gave himself a good opportunity to make an All-NBA team, but I think not Max Christie, sorry, but I do think that Austin Reeves is as big of a deal to get them into this first round as anybody else on that roster.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what's the word I'm looking for? I want to sound smart, so I'm looking for a big word to to say. Well, there's been a lot of movement throughout the league. For some star players, some middle of the road type of players, and average. So at the end of the day, I think they I think that, they should be, a guy like Levine, not being a ball dominant player like Kyrie is. And I think he'll be more or less willing to take not a back seat, but, having that role to complement what, the best player is doing, which is Luka. But then again, if you Luka, you got, you top 5 or top 3 best in the league, and you get another guy that's that good like Kyrie to join you. How, to me, how can you be unhappy when it's literally, taking the eyes off of you?
The reason why I bring up a Levine is because, Levine can bring the ball up the floor. He's getting better as a point guard decision maker than he ever used to be, but he's actually better off the ball. And the dude can be really hot from 3. He doesn't need to be this great defender because Luka's not really a good defender. That's why you got to do your homework and go find a couple of, bigger, a couple of big men that are pretty decent defenders, or at least good enough shot blockers. You could get a Rashawn Holmes for nothing. He hasn't played for Sacramento much this year, and I think that when he has gotten a lot of minutes, that he's better. He's actually pretty good. But to me, I just think an example like a Levine would be a really good second star next to a Luka that I think can actually work outside. They tried Porzingis, it didn't work. They tried Kyrie Irving, it hasn't worked. Some of it doesn't really get talked about very much, but Dallas lost their best defender on their roster in that trade, and that's Dorian Finney-Smith. They don't really have this bona fide, really good defender anymore. And so I just feel that they have a lot of soul searching to do. So does Portland. And, if Toronto ends up losing, they're down 3 with 28 seconds left right now.
Yeah, and they was
I
up
think
by a lot.
Toronto's another candidate that, if Nick Nurse leaves, they could probably blow up their roster. And, teams like Dallas and Portland could go kind of pluck some of these guys from them, in a sense. So stuff like this, that's obviously the carousel and the merry-go-round that the league is. But at the same time, some of these teams really need to show some urgency. And I think those are the top 2 teams that need to show the most urgency this offseason. That's Dallas and Portland.
I would agree with you on that. You do got to show a little bit of urgency.
It's got to feel good to be a Magic fan because you don't need to show urgency. Just like the Pelicans don't need to show any urgency, the Thunder don't. Bad teams I do think if the Raptors lose this game and Nick Nurse is available on the open market, I can see how Houston will really make a big run at trying to get Nick Nurse to be their coach. And that's going to turn, I think, Houston to be a team that's going to try to win again. Now, to me, I see, even though, yes, Nick Nurse has won a title with the Raptors a couple years ago, but I think he's Tom Thibodeau reincarnated. Pascal Siakam, their best player, has led the league in minutes the last 2 years in a row, this season and last season. We've talked about this theory on this show so much. You need to play your best players. I understand that, but you can't run them into the ground. And that is the theory that Nick Nurse does with his best guys. He plays them too many minutes. So Jalen Green, Jabari Smith Jr., you're going to be on the clock if the Raptors lose, and I feel that Houston would really, really go after Nick Nurse. And those two players are going to be the next down the line of those Luol Dengs, those Joakim Noahs, those Derrick Roses, and sooner than later we'll see some of these Raptors guys kind of follow suit. Julius Randle or R.J. Barrett. I understand you got to play your best player, but you can't play them all game, and I think that's the difference.
Yeah, and for you to make that assumption, man, that's a strong one.
It's the same treatment that we would see with Thibodeau. He's one of those coaches that gets all the media attention of he's this great coach and he's going to turn this team around. And I see this with Nick Nurse. Even Woj is saying, he's going to be the best coach on the open market, and I'd be afraid. I would actually be afraid. I mean, he's not a bad coach. I think he's a good X's and O's coach. I just think he plays his players too much every night. They're playing too many minutes versus the lower teams in the East, and they shouldn't be doing that. But in the regular season, this team would, because mainly that Toronto's poorly constructed outside of their really good top five. Their really good starting five. But if I were Jalen Green or Jabari Smith, it's going to be a much different feel compared to a Steven Silas who didn't really care what you did. It seemed that way. Yep. He had no control over the locker room. Some of the players didn't really like him at all, and their roster, to me, doesn't look like a roster that you're going to have a real coach drill these young kids, and all of a sudden they have to perform differently. And I don't see how Houston would do that. Plus, on top of it, all the rumors that James Harden would really entertain going back because he likes Jalen Green and he likes Jabari Smith Jr., which, oh man, I don't know. I don't think I would want to overpay Harden, let Kevin Porter Jr. walk, and rely on a Harden, Jalen Green, and Jabari Smith Jr. with a crazy maniac potential coach. To me, Derek, correct me if I'm wrong here, but that does not sound like a recipe for success.
Yeah. Repeat that question again, because I was reading something.
That's okay. I was saying about the Rockets, if you don't pay Kevin Porter Jr., you have Jabari Smith, who you just drafted number 3 overall. You have Jalen Green, who was the draft pick the year before. You have all these rumors about James Harden wanting to go to Houston because he likes Jabari Smith and he likes Jalen Green. If the Raptors somehow lose this game, which, 12 seconds left, we're down 3, it's potential. Nick Nurse is really rumored to possibly go to Houston, that Houston's going to make a really big run at him. And I think all those components together, even if they got a James Harden, to me would be not a recipe for success if you're coached by a crazy maniac like a Nick Nurse kind of is.
Yeah, and what's funny is earlier when you called him Thibodeau, Was that Thibodeau 2.0?
Yeah, he's essentially a new Thibodeau. Yeah,
that's not good, ladies and gentlemen. If you ain't been following us that long, we got beef with Tibbs. So,
I mean, think of it this way, Derek. Even though the Knicks are a lot better than they were when they made the playoffs, 2 years ago or last year? I think it was 2 years ago when they played the Hawks. It was one of the two. But they're playing Cleveland round one. I think Cleveland will roll them. I don't see how the Knicks will beat Cleveland now, honestly. I just don't take a Tom Thibodeau team in today's NBA that serious anymore. I just don't. I mean, Julius Randle could potentially carry him a few games and Emmanuel quickly give him some good sparks, but Donovan Mitchell is better than Julius Randle, and Darius Garland, I would say, is just as good as Jalen Brunson. Karis LeVert is a really good player off the bench, where Emmanuel quickly has had a fantastic season off the bench for the Knicks. RJ Barrett, I don't think is as good as he was even 2 years ago. Josh Hart is more of a defender, not really an offensive guy. And, I don't think the Knicks, they only have Mitchell Robinson to deal with a Jared Allen and Evan Mobley front court. And I think that's where the Knicks can get killed in this series. They don't have the best player in the series, which is Donovan Mitchell, and they don't have the front court to match up with Jared Allen and Evan Mobley.
Yeah, you make some good points. You definitely made some good points there. Oh yeah.
And I'm not trying to exactly get you to agree with me. I'm just saying that obviously Cleveland has a better head coach.
Yeah.
One, they have the best player in the series. They have a better front court, and I think they have just as good of a bench, or down to your seventh or eighth guy, compared to like the Knicks, maybe their fourth to seventh best player there too. So to me, I see this as, I think Cleveland can win in probably 6 games. The Bulls just came back and won. So there we go. Our Nick Nurse theory might be coming true for the Houston Rockets, and we'll see a freaking flaming disaster out of that too. But to me, I think the Cavs should be able to roll the Knicks pretty easily. You also have, the Hawks won their playing game yesterday to be able to go play the Celtics.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Celtics should be able to roll the Hawks pretty easily, but the Hawks can give them some problems. Even though they're going to be massive underdogs. They have the best. The Celtics obviously have the best player in the series. They have a far better. They have not a far better coach. I think they have a slightly better team. They have a better team, but okay, I'll give the coaching edge to Quinn Snyder. He's actually a pretty good coach. I like Quinn Snyder, but I think the Celtics will roll the Hawks pretty easily. And if the Heat have to play the Bucs, or if the Bulls, the Bulls and Heat will play the last playing game on Friday, the Bucs will roll either team pretty easily. Is how I see that. If the Heat don't get into at least the first round, there's going to be, I think, there could be a change or two with a Tyler Hero. I'm going to be writing about this certain Heat player, and I'm going to preview it. But I think Duncan Robinson is the worst player in the NBA based on contract. He's going to be my highlight guy in the Anthony Bennett All-Stars coming out within the next 1-2 weeks. They can't trade his contract. They have to attach a really good player like Tyler Hero in order to do that. And so to me, if the Heat can't get out of this play-in, or if they're obviously not going to beat the Bucs, because they won't, then they have no choice. They have to attach Tyler Hero in order to get rid of Duncan Robinson's contract. And I just don't see how any team in the NBA, unless they're getting something really awesome attached with Duncan Robinson, to be able to do it.
Yeah, and Duncan Robinson, he had that great year, and he cashed in obviously, but it's a prime example of you pay the guys who are consistent year in and year out. Now you're stuck with a bad contract.
To me, it's just as bad as the Bertans contract that Washington gave Bertans, and you know how I highlighted that one. I just feel it's easily the worst contract in the league. There's no doubt about that. When it comes to performance and how much he's getting paid, it is easily the worst contract in the league.
Yeah. What was something else that I was thinking? Oh yeah. This was I was going to ask you earlier. Then, Lonzo Ball. Was he really that important to what the Bulls were doing offensively, to the point where they really struggled in the second half of the season, getting consistency and just having a leader handling the ball and playing the point.
Well, to me, what Lonzo brings you is he brings you the point guard. DeRozan, he brings the ball up a lot, but he's not an actual point guard. He's a shooting guard. Zach LaVine, as I mentioned earlier, he's not an actual point guard. He's getting better at decision-making and assists, and obviously DeRozan is too, but you're putting guys in the positions that they don't need to be doing, and that's what the Bulls are counting on. They're also counting on that guys like Colby White, Caruso, Beverly, multiple other guys that honestly they're not great shooters except for maybe Colby White. So with Lonzo being this terrific passer, he can run an offense so well, plus he can shoot pretty well too, on top of it. So if you take away all of that, what he can do, and you have to put it in guys like LaVine and DeRozan, who, they can do it, but they're not at their best doing that. And if they're not at their best, then their offense doesn't run as well. They're not a good 3-point shooting team. They don't take a lot of threes. And in today's league, what do you have to do, right? You have to at least shoot the ball well from three, good enough. And you don't have to be a 3-point shooting team, but you have to be good enough at it. And the Bulls are not. It's pretty plain and simple in that way.
Yeah, I saw a stat that said they were ranked in the bottom of the league as far as finish time. So we'll see.
And he's not even supposed to play next year at all. And so it's another thing where the Bulls, they got to keep LaVine, they got to keep DeRozan interested, they got to keep Vucevic interested to make this work. I mean, because Ayo Dosunmu, he's not a good shooter either. He's a point guard, but he's not a good shooter. He doesn't have good size. So to me, Lonzo has good size for his position. He has good defensive abilities. He can shoot well and he can pass so well. So when you only have a guy like an Ayo Dosunmu who can only do maybe one or two of those things well, compared to a Lonzo who I think can do 4 to 5 of those things well in one player, I mean, you get where I'm coming from here. You don't have to have the other maybe three other guards you have on your roster.
Yeah. And I forgot what I was going to say. It was right at the tip of my tongue. That's why, let me think. I was just thinking about last night. Forgot there was any play-in games on, so I didn't watch any of the play-in, games last night. I just seen some highlights this morning. And what's your thoughts on, the Lakers?
Well, after the All-Star break, when I said cue up the Undertaker music, right? If they're irrelevant, they're dead in the water, there's nothing going on here, they're not interesting, let's move on, we're not talking about them. Well, if they get out of the first round, then I'm going to care about them. Now, I think the Grizzlies are a really tough matchup, I think, for LA. And I'll say this. I'll say it why. Grizzlies have great offense, and they have even better defense. The Lakers have, I would say, decent offense. It's like they're not a juggernaut, but they're good enough. But they're not really that great on defense. They're not, as a team defense of team, they are not. And that's who Memphis is. So to me, to take out a guy like a D'Angelo Russell, Malik Beasley, the other guys, Desmond Bane can do that pretty easily, and is how I see it. John Morant can outscore LeBron in any game in the series, and Jaren Jackson, I think, can do a good enough job for parts of the series against Anthony Davis, where the Lakers are going to take advantage of Jaren Jackson because they're going to try to get him in foul trouble as much as possible, and that's a great way to try to even out the playing field to get Jaren Jackson in foul trouble. I think the Grizzlies have enough firepower. They have more than enough defense, and they have just as good of depth, if not better, than I think the Lakers do. So to me, I think the Grizzlies are easily the clear-cut favorite in the series. And it's not because they're the second seed and the Lakers are now the seventh seed. I think it's just because the Grizzlies are just a better team than LA, is how I see it.
Yeah.
When you got a streaky shooter in Dylan Brooks, who I think is not that great of a shooter, but he can be streaky. But also Dylan Brooks is elite on defense. He's not just good. I mean, he's potentially a first-team all-defender. He's that good. And if you put him on LeBron for most of the series, I think you're going to see some tough games that LeBron's going to have. Him and Dylan Brooks are going to go after it all series, and I think Dylan Brooks can not shut down LeBron, but I think he can at least make him have a few bad games, and the Grizzlies can pound the Lakers those games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you bring us some really good points there. With the importance of just having a good group. Like, I'm with you. I think the Lakers will lose the series. But if, let's say, the Lakers, play some of their best ball of the whole season right now, and with that being the case, I could say I can see their chance, but it's gonna take a miracle. Milwaukee's been better than them all season. There was never at one point you even looked at the Lakers and said they're the best team. That's just the way it is. So for me,
I think they're running into a bad matchup. That's what I think of it. I think they are the underdogs in this series, and they should be. This Grizzlies team is just so good defensively. Like I said, Desmond Bain can lock down some of their guards. Jaren Jackson can at least do a good enough job on Anthony Davis. And I think Dillon Brooks can really put LeBron into these 6 of 18 shooting type games. I can really see that happening, how good Dillon Brooks is as an on-ball defender. He's absolutely an incredible on-ball defender. He's not really that great of a shooter. He'll take open looks, and I think LA will probably leave him open because he bricks a lot. But at the end of the day, he's going to take enough shots where he's still going to affect the game offensively. I think Taylor Jenkins is a much better coach than Darvin Ham. And the Grizzlies do have some good bench players. They have they have players that play within their system, and I think that's the right way of constructing your roster, where obviously the Lakers are a little different in that respect, to put it nicely. If the Lakers do somehow get out of this series, I will eat my words, and I will be not undefeated anymore, queuing up the Undertaker music, talking about a team. But I think if they lose this first round series, I'm going to call it a win on my side of that.
So it's a win-win either way.
Well, I mean, I would eat words on one side of it, I think. But if they do end up losing the series, then I'll just be like, well, the Undertaker's undefeated at WrestleMania, and the Undertaker's undefeated on the Rat Pack Sports Show, right? So that's kind of how I'm going to look at it. is how I see it with that. I think whoever Denver plays in the 1-8 matchup, they're going to roll them, whether it's OKC, whether it's New Orleans, or rather it's Minnesota. Denver's going to roll them. They're much better than in every way than either of the 3 teams, even though I'm a Thunder fan, and they're easily much better, because the big thing compared to last year is, we saw Denver. They won 2 games versus the Warriors in the first round last year, and they didn't have Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr., and they didn't have Aaron Gordon at the confidence level that Aaron Gordon has this season compared to last season. To me, this Denver team, I'm going to say it, they're their favorite to get out of the West. I know ESPN says the Suns, and I just don't believe that. So, or the Warriors. To me, I think Denver's is better than them, and so they're going to roll whoever they play in the first round. I think the Suns will dominate the Clippers. Honestly, the Clippers won't have Paul George all series.
That's crazy,
We've
man.
seen it. We've seen it with time and time again these last couple of seasons. If the Clippers don't have both of them on the floor at the same time in those crunch time moments, we can't really take the Clippers that seriously, even though they have Russell Westbrook. I just don't think you can.
Yeah, that's funny, man. And availability is always key. And for the Clippers, since you brought in Kawhi, since you brought in Paul George, there's been very little time that both of them have spent on the court together. Whether Kawhi's, nursing the injury, then he get back, Paul George get hurt. Now he's out. Paul George come back, now Kawhi Leonard is out. It's like, somebody do something. mean,
they make it to the Western Conference Finals, but at the end of it, Kawhi Leonard hurt himself in the Western. He was hurt in the playoffs too. So
yep.
they haven't had either of them, for a long stretch. And obviously, it makes this OKC trade with Paul George one of the biggest heists in NBA history. But at the end of the day, they just haven't had anybody healthy, and I feel that it's going to be another season like that. This Suns team, even though they have this great starting five, but they have no depth. And when you have no depth in the playoffs, and you have to rely on a Kevin Durant and a Chris Paul at their ages, man, I think that's so shaky. I think it's incredibly shaky. And to be fair, Devin Booker is great and DeAndre Ayton he's all right. But why they got to the finals, they gave up some of those two key players in the Durant trade of how they got to the finals 2 years ago, and Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson.
Yeah.
So as much as the Suns is great on paper, I think the Suns are second round and out, man. Like I just see it that way. I just see the Suns not being as good as the Nuggets. The Nuggets, I think, are a deeper team compared to the Suns, and I think that's what's going to affect things when outside of that big four, who on the Suns really scares you? Derek, I'll let you have the Jeopardy music in the background, and I'll let you answer that.
Dun, 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 dun. Who on the Suns outside of KD and Booker?
Well, KD, Booker, Paul, Ayton. There are four guys. Who else on the Suns roster, if you're looking at it, are you afraid of?
What's the I'm not afraid of them, but no, nobody. Honestly, I'm not really afraid of Paul, but it's his leadership and his ability to, the direct traffic, and always seem like, he made the right
late game playoff situations, directing traffic, hitting mid ranges, sometimes hitting threes. I mean, he still has good value. He just can't play as many minutes as he used to.
Yeah.
But he still brings this amazing value. He's going to put the ball in Durant's hands right where it should be. He's going to still put Ayton in pick and rolls, and he's going to give Ayton the ball in the right spot. I mean, that's why I think you should still care about Chris Paul on your roster. But are you afraid of Bismack Biyombo? Are you afraid of, Landry Shamet, Damian Lee, Josh Okogie? Like, I wouldn't be. I would play 4-on-5 the rest of the game if they're putting out one of those guys with the other four. I wouldn't even guard them.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you on that one.
Jock Landale. Landale. The point is that the Suns got so much better, but what the media doesn't want to tell you is their depth is terrible. I don't know, man. It's tough. I firmly believe the Suns are a second round and out team. I truly believe that.
Yeah, it's hard for me to make them a favorite. They really haven't played a whole lot of games together, so it's one of those situations where until they prove it, it's still up in the air. You got some talent, and you got a couple of Hall of Famers on your roster and stuff like that, but until you win something.
I think the last game of the series, or the last series of the Western Conference, the Kings, the surprising Sacramento Kings, and the defending champion Golden State Warriors. I think it's going to be an excellent series. I think it's going to be really back and forth, and there's going to be some games where I don't think the Warriors can handle the offensive firepower that Sacramento can actually really put out there. And it's going to have to take really good defense, throwback retro Draymond, on-ball defender Klay Thompson, red-hot shooting from Steph Curry, in order to keep up with the Kings in some of these games. But also, the Warriors have all the experience. They have actual defenders on their team compared to Sacramento doesn't really have defenders. So I give the Warriors the edge in this series, even though they're the 6th seed here. But when the Warriors can turn it on, they can really turn it on, as we all know that. And they have Andrew Wiggins back from his really long absence of either his dad was in really bad health or he's having marital problems. There's a lot of weird rumors going on out there. I like to think it's more of family health issues compared to marital problems is what put him out for such a long time. I think for Wiggins, he is kind of that missing link that the Warriors have needed all season. I mean, they haven't been good defensively. They've been getting rolled, especially on the road. I think from last season to now, the Warriors' depth isn't as good as it has been. But getting Gary Payton too with that weird trade deadline situation is really going to help the Warriors quite a bit. But to me, I think the Warriors have the edge. It's not because they're defending champs. Their players are just more battle tested. They can play very lockdown defense when needed. And I think a guy like Sabonis is going to have a hard time against Draymond in a playoff series. And I think Fox can kind of shoot you out of a game if he goes ice cold. So to me, as good a firepower as Sacramento has, I don't see them getting out of this series. I think Golden State will win this series.
Yeah. I think as for the Suns, we spoke about it, and when they made that trade, we both said they might have gave up too much. And that's, what it's looking like. They did. They gave up too much for something that's not really guaranteed. As the Western Conference is strong in itself. There's nothing, there's nothing saying that what's the word I'm looking for? I hate that. I'm on a roll, and then a specific word I'm looking for, I can't find it, so it messed me up. I lose my concentration.
Well, with all the hype the Suns have, we're going to see it. We're going to see it, right? Like if you can go with just your top four and a bunch of dudes and make it to the Western Finals or the Finals, however it goes for the Suns, if it can be seen that way, that they can pull that off, then that roster construction can work. But if we see that they get rolled because their bench is that bad, then I think that you're going to see that the media overlooked the part to where the Suns lack. And I don't know if those four guys is enough to overcome that. Now, in the first round against the Clippers without Paul George, I absolutely believe it. Even though the Clippers are great on with their depth and they can go 8 or 9 deep, but without Paul George and they only have Kawhi Leonard, I don't take it. I don't take the Clippers as serious as as maybe some others might. But for now, I would say the Suns are going to get out of the first round But after that, it's all bets are off. I mean, I think Denver is more deep. I think they're a slightly better team than the Suns. If they were to play in the second round, I think the Nuggets would beat them. Because not one of those four guys, outside of maybe Chris Paul, is a pretty good defender for his position. I mean, do you think DeAndre Ayton's this great defender as a center?
No.
Durant, when he was on Golden State, he was, but he's not anymore. Chris Paul still can pester guards. I'd say that for sure. And then Devin Booker, he's an offensive guy. He's not a defensive guy.
Yeah.
So, the Nuggets do have KCP. They have Bruce Brown. I mean, they have some guys that actually are defenders, plus they could do other stuff. I just like Denver a little bit better. I've gone on it all year. I've rode that horse, and I will keep riding it. And I still believe that Denver's a better team than Phoenix.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. You got anything else, Nicholas, before we get you going, or you gonna stay on for another segment? I'm gonna take you.
No, I can head out if you need Sean Naylor and.
No, I don't think I don't think Boss Hog's calling in tonight. But I mean, it's up to you, man. I just want to take five real quick, or not even 5, but just a few minutes to use the restroom.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead and do that.
All right, so we're going to take this quick break, and we'll come back on the flip side, and we'll continue the conversation here on the Rat Pack Sports Show with Nicholas Lane, talking some NBA and, the playoff scenario here we have going on. So this is Rat Pack Sports Show. We'll be back after this.